we are moving on to our final speaker for this session, the one and only Mr. Robert Watson, Principal of the Guild of Professional English Butlers, who truly has pioneered butler service as we know it today. Mr. Watson, over to you.
Thank you, Rochelle. I was just sitting here listening to Rory and Conroy and thinking they are both so right, and they've raised so many issues that we know from experience happens in butler service in hotels. I especially can speak from my experience because I've been in the hospitality business for 51 years, 3 months, 4 days, 3 hours, and 28 minutes. And in that time, I've done absolutely every single job that you can do in a hotel, except for maintenance, because as my wife will tell you, I can take anything apart, but unable to put it back together again. So 30 years ago in 1990, I opened the Lanesborough Hotel in London, which was the first hotel in Europe to have what was really a truly butler service. It was a really good position to have because basically nobody could tell me what a hotel butler did. Sort of, most people would imagine a stiff, formal English person in a big house with lots of grand ladies and gentlemen attending and so on. But when it came to butler service in hotels, nobody could tell me what was expected of us. So we had to create our own standard system, procedures, and training. So I stayed there for 7 years as head butler. But then actually I got bored. Once you serve Michael Jackson, Madonna, Bruce Willis, Mick Jagger, David Bowie, and all, Princess Diana and so on, it's no more exciting. So I had a great idea to set up the Guild of Professional English Butlers, because by then a lot of people, hotels around the world, were asking me to come and set up their butler service and do the training. So it started off with hotels like Bellagio in Las Vegas, Raffles Hotel in Singapore, Peninsula Hotel in Hong Kong, and so on. But after a few years, other hotels looked at it and thought, okay, we may not be in their league, we may not be in their price range, but we have the same need, which is to provide outstanding service to a small group of people who are paying premium rates to stay in our hotel. So I did 20 years ago, I set up for a well-known hotel group in the Caribbean, set up and trained their butler department, and went back every year because of new developments, new training, increasing the number of butler suites on offer from that hotel group. And if we ask ourselves why we have butler service, basically it comes back to one thing, which is money. Because if these guests are paying a premium rate, that raises the average daily rate that the hotel is achieving. And if by providing butler service because of the increased rates, the increased occupancy of the larger suites, let's say a figure, if you can increase the average daily rate by just $20, at the end of the year, you would have an increase of $32,851 for every 1% of occupancy. And that is, at the end of the year, it depends on how many rooms you have. But if you have, let's say, 5,000 rooms, then that equates to something like $32 million per year. And basically, if you think about it, what are the butlers selling? What we're selling is great, outstanding service. And it continues to develop. Again, going back in my history of butler service, we started off with pagers, and all we got on the pager was a room number. So you had to go to the room number, see what the guest wanted. After a few years, we then gave the butlers cell phones, so they could be anywhere in the hotel. and the guests just in their room would call their butler on the cell phone and be speaking directly to their butler. And then this hotel group said, wait a minute, the guest has to be in their room in order to get to a telephone. Why don't we give the guest a cell phone so that if they're on the beach or out on a tour, they can call their butler and say, oh, Robert, we're back in 10 minutes. Can you organize a bottle of champagne and some sandwiches to be in our suite? Perfect service. And it goes on like that. Nowadays, most people, most butlers, they are working with iPhones. So on that iPhone is all the guest history, all the menus of the restaurants, any special events, special promotions going on in the hotel. And that guest history is the most powerful tool you can have, because I think it promotes not just loyalty to a hotel, but when you have a group of hotels, it promotes brand loyalty. So whichever hotel that I stay in, if it's a group hotel, they know not to put champagne in my suite on arrival, because I always think that you should never drink champagne alone. You should only ever drink champagne with the woman you love. So there's always a bottle of Chardonnay, because they know I like Chardonnay. Yep. They know not to put hotel fruit in my room, because I don't eat hotel fruit. But I like chocolate cookies, so they put chocolate cookies in my room. So immediately, when I go into that room, whichever hotel it is in the group, I know that I'm going to be looked after to the same level as I was looked after in another hotel of the same group. And that really does promote loyalty. Also, I think that because of the very personalized service that butlers give, it's very, very, very common that a guest will get locked into, in brackets, their butler, and they don't want to stay with any other butler. They want their butler. I think so many hotels say to their guests, we want you to think of this as a home away from home. And they say the word, but they don't actually do anything about it, and they don't mean it. Because in my home, if my wife makes me a cup of coffee, I don't have to sign a check. If my wife is cooking, she doesn't ask me how I would like my steak. She already knows I like my steaks medium rare. Yeah. She doesn't need to ask me what soaps I prefer, because she knows what soap I always have in my bathroom. Yeah. But in most hotels, when you start treating the guest as a standard issue, I don't care whether you want the fruit or don't want the fruit. You are going to get the fruit, because that is what we put in all the rooms. Yeah. And so the guest immediately knows that they don't feel at home. They know they're in a hotel. But when you get somebody who takes care of those details, and they don't have to ask you those questions, that is a very, very different level of service. And it makes you feel comfortable, it makes you feel valued, and it makes you feel relaxed. I think with great butler service, it comes along, let's say, a situation like this. I know of a couple who used over a period of time stayed in a hotel. So they arrived, and the lady butler who looked after them, Lisa, was assigned different rooms, not their room, by a new butler manager. So the guest arrived, and the new butler manager steps forward. Oh, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, this is George, your butler. So the guest said, no, Lisa always looks after us. And they said, well, Lisa is on another section, so she can't look after you. And so the guest said, okay, can you ask the hotel manager to come and see me? So they're still standing in the reception. So the hotel manager comes, and he turns to the hotel manager and says, look, here is my daughter, Angela. We've been coming here since she's been 3 years old. Lisa is part of our family. We come here every year for a 10-day stay. And Lisa now, Angela is now almost in tears because she can't see Lisa. And I do not pay $8,000 a night for a 10-day stay to be looked after by somebody I don't know. So Lisa has to be here. So do the mathematics. $8,000 a night, 10 nights, 80,000. 10 years, 800,000 from one guest. And I'm pretty certain that when Angela gets married and has kids, she's going to go to that same hotel and keep going for year after year after year. And that is the bond and relationship that is built up between a guest and a butler. One of the reasons is that over the period of time, because of technology coming in, at one time, let's say the reception was the key point for a guest to interact with because of the length of time it took to check in and sign all these different forms and fill them in and so on. But after a while, when reception and check-ins become so much simpler, you can basically check in 5 minutes now. So you're not really building up a relationship with the receptionist. Now, in a lot of hotels, it was the concierge who you interacted with for services outside of the hotel, booking restaurants and tours and so on. But generally speaking, the concierge stands or sits behind the desk. They're not proactive. They have to be reactive. So they can't see what a guest is doing when they're on the beach or in their room or what restaurants they're eating and what did they eat in a restaurant.